this society, this world, money makes the world go round.
Every war is also a business, and the war on drugs is no different. The global illicit drug trade is worth an estimated $500 billion per year. That's around 1% of all global trade. And no drug is more linked with money in the popular imagination than cocaine.
This particular money is going to a Spanish firm. There's a lot of money generated at street level through cocaine.
But where does that money go? Who's spending it and who's making it? The coke business generates extreme violence at every stage of its production and distribution. But why? Why does this one product seem so uniquely connected with violence and warfare? In this show, we're following the money. How does the cocaine industry actually work? Why does it function in the way it does? And who bears the responsibility? The three biggest cocaine producing countries are Colombia, Peru, and Bolivia.
So this is where the process of making cocaine all starts. These guys come down here to the farms at the crack of dawn before it gets too hot, bind their fingers in fabric, and literally rip the leaves off the trees. This activity is going on at this time every day, all across this region.
Somos pobres, sembramos, vendemos la hojita para mantener nuestro hogar y nuestros hijos educarlos.
Nothing so far exactly screams multi-billion-dollar industry. The average coca picker can make up to about $50 a week, supporting their families with daily back-breaking labor. But poverty and rough working conditions are hardly the only things these farmers have to worry about.
El terreno es esto de ellos, pero la pista es clandestina. Por ley esto se va a inhabilitar, vamos a detonar.
This looks like they damaged the landing strip, but they are just using this to put more explosives inside and just blow the whole place up. So no wonder why the native community is not happy about this.
The US has poured billions of dollars in military aid into the war on drugs in Latin America. For 2019 to 2020, Congress has approved $418 million in aid to Colombia alone, to suppress coca and maintain peace efforts with the left-wing rebel factions who use the drug to finance their wars. Each year, militaries across the region pull up thousands of hectares of coca fields by hand.
Acá llegó el ejército y nos radicó estas maticas que nosotros sobrevivimos de ellas. Y vea, esto es trabajo de hace 2 años que yo sembré esto y ya quedó perdido.
But for decades, governments would destroy crops by spraying them with the herbicide glyphosate. This stopped in 2013 when the Colombian government had to pay Ecuador $15 million in compensation for the severe health problems the chemical spraying was causing families along the border. To make a kilo of cocaine takes about a ton of coca leaves. Prices obviously fluctuate, but a ton of coca leaves off the farm costs roughly $400. From the fields, the leaves are transported to labs hidden deep in the jungle, where they're converted into cocaine paste. A kilo of raw paste generally goes for somewhere between $700 to $900, around double the price of the raw leaves. The alkaloid paste is then transported to another lab, where it's mixed with even more lovely chemicals, turning it into pure, finished cocaine. And this is the moment where everything changes. The moment the product passes from producer to distributor, and something unbelievable happens. That kilo of pure coke that was worth $900 in the South American jungles becomes worth roughly $20,000 by the time it hits the US. And that's just wholesale. By the time that kilo has been cut by dealers and broken up into single grams to sell, it can fetch around $150,000. $400 to $150,000 is a pretty wild markup for any product. And that price jump is pretty much the key to the whole cocaine business. Because the product is illegal, those coca farmers and jungle lab techs can't sell it straight to consumers. The real profit lies in transporting it from the fields of South America to users around the world. Since Pablo Escobar in 1970s Colombia, the international cocaine trade has been run by cartels, and since the 1970s, those cartels have been getting more and more violent.
Encontró a un agente de la policía municipal ejecutado. Prácticamente le cortaron la cabeza. Aquí hay tejido, mira todavía.
That's his brain.
Hey.
Oh man, really?
In Mexico, there were over 34,000 murders in 2019. In the first half of 2020, there have already been over 17,000. That's roughly one person being murdered every 15 minutes. And one of the root causes of this violence is that when drugs are illegal, gangs will fight to control their supply.
What governments have done by prohibiting drugs is they have created a perpetually growing violent market where police remove one dealer at any level, at street level, cartel level, wherever in the world, there almost always follows violence to compete for that market share. So over time, this market growth has meant a growth in violence.
How old are you guys?
Yo tengo 27.
13. I mean, do you want to be one of those people? Have to kill people?
No, padre, sí.
Ya veo lo que quiere ser el muchacho.
Mexican drug trafficking to the US is estimated to be worth between $19 and $29 billion a year. The Sinaloa cartel alone turns over more than $3 billion. And this money doesn't just buy gold-plated guns and hippos for drug lords' private zoos. It's used to pay off the police, the military, and the government. Many experts say that in Mexico, there isn't a single level of government, from local traffic police to the president's office, that hasn't been corrupted by narco money, to the point where the state and the narcos can become almost indistinguishable.
Todo esta área de nosotros.
This is so far away from any city. Do the police ever come by here?
Así han llegado a venir, pero solo pasan por caminos y uno ya mismo, pues muchas veces le da dinero uno, otra vez piden solo comida, otra vez quieren mujeres y eso. Que si ellos vienen en buen plan, pues nosotros en buen plan, nosotros cooperamos con ellos. Y si ellos vienen en modo agresivo contra nosotros, pues nosotros nomás repelemos la agresión.
Who really controls Mexico? Is it the authorities or is it the cartels?
Pues el gobierno. El cartel llega hasta donde el gobierno quiere. El gobierno es el verdadero jefe. La mayoría de las ganancias van a dar a ellos, a los altos mandos del gobierno.
When guys with automatic weapons are sitting on mountaintops telling you that the government is the real cartel boss and taking most of the profits, you know your drug policies are probably not in a great place. But with that $400 to $150 markup, it's sort of inevitable. But who's paying for all these 150 grand kilos of coke? We've seen the producers and the distributors, but who's actually consuming this stuff? There's probably as much misinformation peddled about the Western cocaine market as about any other aspect of the war on drugs. And that's a crowded field. The idea that so many politicians seem to have is that this is still some sort of drug of the elite, only taken by famous actors, media types, and the occasional member of parliament.
They have their organic food, they boast about buying fair trade, and at the same time, they're ordering Class A drugs.
Is it fair to say, Commissioner, that some of these middle-class dinner parties that send out for cocaine, they've actually got blood on their hands?
I think anybody who is seeking recreational, in inverted commas, drugs, particularly Class A drugs, yes, I think that is a good way to put it. I do.
But that is astonishingly out of touch, based on stale pop culture cliches from the 1980s. The truth is, cocaine is pretty much everywhere.
Well, we're working class, you know, we're not too comfortable, but we do all right, you know, we don't ask for much, you know, we just go to work, you know, we spend time with each other and with our family and do all the things that families do. And if people realised just how much coke is in this country, what corners of it actually reaches, then people might just be a little bit less judgmental over the people that use it.
976,000 people used powder cocaine in England and Wales in 2019. If cocaine was a British company, it would be bigger than Boots or EasyJet. In 2016, 1.9 million Americans reported using coke in the past month. This goes way beyond Wall Street bankers and the Hollywood elite. This is everyday people looking to unwind a bit and willing to take the health risks involved in using cocaine to do so. But the money still flows.
It's easy money, you know what I'm saying? It's easy money. Customers keep coming back, so I don't see why I shouldn't stop doing it. It's money at the end of the day.
Economics drives everything about cocaine, from the jungles of South America to nightclub toilets across the world. It was the war on drugs that created that price jump from $400 to $150,000. But unfortunately for the farmers in Colombia, Peru, and Bolivia, it is exactly that economic reality, which means that destroying their crops is actually completely useless. The tactic of trying to stop the flow of drugs by sending the army to eradicate crops was, at its heart, an economic idea.
Imagine if governments were so effective at reducing the supply of coca leaf that they managed to double its price. You'd be talking about a doubling of the price of those leaves from $400 to $800. But at the other end, you wouldn't be doubling the price of the finished cocaine, you'd be increasing its price by $400. So it would be going up from $150,000 per kilo to $150,400 per kilo. Think of it like the market for paintings. You could have a painting that costs millions of dollars. The cost of the paint doesn't have very much to do with that. The place where the value is added is when the artist takes that paint and transforms it into something unique.
People sometimes make jokes about there being no such thing as ethical cocaine or fair trade cocaine, and they're basically right. The coke business is violent and exploitative, and it's those on the bottom that suffer the most. Farmers having their crops destroyed, drug users around the world trapped without adequate treatment or support, and kids exploited by drug gangs from Latin America to LA to London. But if you're looking for someone to blame for how this all works, it's probably not the random user picking up a gram for their night out. It's the people who set this whole market up by making the product illegal in the first place. The problem is the war on drugs.
We'd like to congratulate drugs for winning the war on drugs.